I've decided to make the Holy Spirit and God and his mission my first priority. And the way I do that is I teach it through Built to Pay You, because there's a lot of people out here struggling and they've been praying to God about money. So my job is to remove money from their prayer list so they can pray about something else.
Mic drop nugget. I love that. I love that. I need you to worry about other stuff. Let's just get the money part out of the way. You can pray
That's
about the other
it.
Welcome to HBCU4U Podcast. I'm your host, Galen Turner, and today's guest is somebody I've known since we were teenagers, and I can tell you personally, this brother has always been built different. Mac Reed is a proud Prairie View A&M University graduate, a kingdom-minded entrepreneur, financial strategist, and teacher with a passion for helping people advance through clarity, conviction, and cash flow. As creator of Built to Pay You and the Wealth Triangle framework, Mac equips entrepreneurs and ministry leaders to make, manage, and multiply money God's way, so their business becomes a vehicle for both profit and purpose. He owns two firms, Mac Reed and Associates and Mac Reed Consulting, and has helped clients save millions in taxes, build real cash flow, and grow multiple businesses into 7- and 8-figure enterprises. Beyond the numbers, Mac believes entrepreneurs are the key to building nations, and that every gift and talent was given with a purpose bigger than a paycheck. From small town Mississippi to changing lives, one business at a time, please welcome my brother and my buddy, Mac Reed. What's up, man? How you doing, man?
What's going on, man? What's going on? How you doing, man? It's been a minute.
So glad to reconnect with you, man. I'm just happy to be talking with you, and I'm happy to hear what you have to say, and for the people to hear what you have to say as well, man. I believe you have a powerful story, a powerful message, a powerful testimony. So let's jump straight into the questions, man.
Go right ahead, man. Let's get to it.
Yes, sir. You and I go way back to Cleveland, Mississippi. High school, 1994 to 1998. Taking VOTEC classes together. For the people listening, paint that picture for us. Who was Mac Reed back then, and what was that season of life like for you?
Oh, the Mac Reed of then was somebody who was still just trying to figure things out. Like, some days I wanted to be an engineer. Some days I wanted to be a basketball coach. Some days I just wanted to play in the NBA. And then some days I said, you know what? I just want to get out and live in a big city, and I just want to be rich. But I had no idea like how I wanted to do it, right? I had all these dreams, but I didn't have necessarily a plan. So the Mac Reed back then is way, way different from today. The Mac Reed of today is somebody who basically is plan focused, but man, the one that was back then was really like, look, I just know I want to get to a destination. I just don't know how to get there.
For sure. What was that shift for you? At what point in your life did it make that shift where you really started to come into yourself and you realized what you wanted to be and how you wanted to go about being that person you are now?
So it was when I actually came to Houston for the first time. That is when I realized that, one, I wanted to be in a big city, and two, being around Houston was where I wanted to be. And when I actually moved out here, after I graduated, that is when I noticed that things shifted for me. So I realized, okay, I started to see people that kind of was more like me, more like just vision focused, more mission focused. I partied. Yeah, I had, a lot of stuff that I did, but also I had a attitude about me that I was all about business as well, right? So I got a chance to meet a group of people that was the same way, and I started to find my circle, definitely when I moved out here, and that's when I realized, okay, Now I know how to think. Now I know how to process. Now I know how to vision plan, how to go, because now I'm in that. I found my circle of people that were just so mission focused, so visionary minded, that once I started to get around that circle, things started to unlock in my head that says, hey, this is what you really should be doing.
Cool, cool. Now we're gonna continue to get into that and expound on that as we go along in the questions. But let's take it back to Cleveland as well. We grew up in the same town, right? But we did go to different high schools. I know they've merged since that time. How did Cleveland, Mississippi shape the man and the entrepreneur that you are today?
Cleveland shaped me because there was a lot to overcome, right? Not necessarily from a money standpoint or anything like that. Really, more so a mindset. There was a lot of people that didn't have a mindset of success. A lot of folks, man, mediocrity was like everything to them. Like just being okay with being okay type of thing, right? Being okay with just surviving. And I never just had that in me, right? I've always been a competitor, right? So one thing Cleveland did for me was it taught me how to compete, right? It taught me how to compete. Like, we both played ball, right? And not to say that we were like the best ball players or anything, but we faced some really good ball players. We faced some really good people that could play, but we never backed down from a challenge, right? That is the thing that I learned coming out of Cleveland. It's like, hey, look, if you can make it in Cleveland, Mississippi, man, you can make it anywhere, right? Because we're competitors. We know how to compete. We know how to walk into a room, and we may not necessarily be the most well spoken, the most best dressed, the smartest person in the room, or even just the one with all the connections. But you better believe by the time we walk up out of there, everybody gonna know your name.
For
Everybody's
sure.
gonna know where you're from, and everybody's gonna know what you represent. So that
For
is what
sure.
I learned coming out of Cleveland, Mississippi. Is say, hey, look, I can go to Houston, Texas, this super large city, the fourth largest city in America, and come from this small town of Cleveland, Mississippi. And by the time I move around and I start to make an impact, people gonna know who I am, and people gonna know what I bring to the marketplace, and people gonna know, oh, that's that dude right there from Mississippi. So anytime somebody sees me, oh, they know that that's that boy from Mississippi that came out here and he was ready to make something of himself.
For sure. Now, full disclaimer, folks, for the people watching, Mac was gracious enough to mention that I played basketball. I'm just going, we were on two different levels. Mac took it way, way, way further than I did. Like, I was riding the bench. Because the people in Cleveland go see this. It's like, how you go?
But look, that's
Mac,
why that's how we met. So that's how we met.
yeah,
So
yeah, no. I was decent, but I had the drive and the ambition, but the skill set wasn't quite there. But I did all right for myself in certain aspects, but I didn't
well,
take it as far. But the
but the
drive and
lessons,
ambition was there
right? But the lessons though, right? The
for sure.
lessons in it is that's the thing that I'll tell you that I learned is like, hey, it don't matter who you facing. It don't matter what you going through. Is if you are good at something, or you deem that yourself as good at something, is something that you want, then you should be able to walk in any room, any circumstance, any environment, and your light should still shine. Right. And that is what
For
I learned
sure.
is, hey, you got to be able to compete. You got to be able to show up and just say, hey, look, I'm going to compete regardless of whether I win, whether I lose, or whether it's a tie. Whatever that situation may turn out, is look, I'm going to be a competitor.
For sure. And this is a bonus question. We're going to mention both of the schools. So I went to Cleveland High and Mac went to Eastside. Speak on Eastside a little bit. What did that high school mean to you, and what kind of impact did it have on you?
So I'm going to tell you three words, and they still ring true. Never say die. And you know it. And you know it, Galen. You know it. But as a matter of fact, the spirit that everybody that came from Eastside, the pride that everybody that came from Eastside, man, there's so many people. You can meet somebody here in Houston. If they went to Eastside, they know somebody that knows somebody, right? And look, I want to say a lot of us, man, that have graduated. Now, I'm not as active as they are, but they still have homecomings. They still have get-togethers. They still have all types of celebrations as if the school is still open. Like nothing ever happened, right?
Yes.
But that's because when we were there, they taught school spirit like no other night. Look, I went to Prairie View, and Prairie View is great with school spirit. Matter of fact, Prairie View has one of the greatest homecomings that I would probably say in the entire country. But
Yes.
if I was to put Eastside and Prairie View on the same scale, I can tell you right now, the pride that Eastside has,
Yes.
I'm willing to stand on 10 toes and tell you, man, these people, hey, it ain't no. I mean, they're still getting together. People from class of 50, from the class of 50. I mean, they're coming back, and it's like, look, they're still catching up with their high school friends and all this type of stuff, man. The pride is still there, man, and that's what taught me. That says, look, have pride, man, and even in the face of defeat, you never say die, right? You never say die because, again, you never know what may happen. And that's the lesson that I learned, and that's the lesson that I just took with me, even in the business world, man. I just took all these lessons. Look, compete, and you never say die because you never know what may happen.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I want you to mention that because I've mentioned Eastside in several episodes, and I have a great admiration for Eastside. Even though I went to Cleveland High, I appreciate the school pride that you all have, and that's wonderful. Now, you mentioned Prairie View. You're a proud alum, one of the most storied HBCUs in the country. Mm-hmm. What led you to Prairie View, and what did that HBCU experience give you that prepared you for the real world?
So two reasons why I chose Prairie View. One, because of its vicinity, to Houston. I really wanted to be close to a big city, right? I mean, Jackson State is cool. Mississippi State was cool. I had opportunities to go to all those schools, and I just was like, no, I really love Houston. So Prairie View, obviously, I could have went to TSU, but Prairie View was, in my opinion, Prairie View was a little bit more forward thinking, and the campus looked a little bit better when I did the visits, right? The other reason was because at the time I was an engineering major. I went for engineering for my first degree. Their engineering program was like no others on this side, on this side of the country, right? I mean, you had North Carolina A&T, and you had a few others that said they had a top engineering program, but Prairie View was like, just like, hey, look, I get to go to a school where everybody at the school looked like me, the professors looked like me. That is how we grew up. Definitely going to East Side. That's kind of the environment I had. I'll say, look, it makes me feel at home. So Prairie View was kind of a connection that says, look, I get to get into a program where I can study, get my degree, and then eventually find my way out into the marketplace. So those are the two reasons what made me go to Prairie View. Now, once I got to Prairie View, a whole nother world unlocked, man. I realized engineering probably wasn't what I should have went there for. I probably should have went for business, because when I got there, that's all I ended up doing was started to network, started to meet people. I started some little businesses here and there, man, just kind of working on stuff. And even when I left, some of my friends was like, man, you sure engineering is what you should have been doing, man? You really should have been a business major. And I found out, like, even when I got into the market, I realized, man, business probably was my call. Like, it just came easy to me, just understanding just how business moves, how business works. And it kind of excited me because, again, I'm going to go back to that word competing. I love to compete. So that is what drew me to Prairie View and kept me at Prairie View, to where I was able to kind of make my experience like the best experience I've ever had.
So even with engineering, you are majoring in engineering, you discover yourself or part of yourself at Prairie View within the business in that world. So is that a good assessment there?
Yeah. So taking my engineering classes. So what drew me to engineering is like, obviously one of the things that I probably said I wish I could have done if I was in Cleveland a little bit more is really understand more of like what I wanted to be when I grew up, right? That's that question that everybody asks. Well, I didn't have a lot of exposure to just the industry, right? I mean, as you know, my dad was a pastor. So, man, if we wasn't at school, we wasn't playing ball, we was in church, right? So I didn't really have a lot of exposure to just kind of like the industry and the marketplace and that type of thing. So it was like either I'm at church, we playing ball, or we at school. So it was kind of like, okay, I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I knew what I didn't want to do. And at the time, I was just kind of bent on that. Said, look, I don't want to do these things. So guess what? Let me just do the first thing I need to do to get away. So I got, so obviously, Prairie View made a way for me to get there. And once I got to Prairie View, I said, look, let me try the engineering thing. I got in engineering. I stayed in it because, I was good at math and I was good at kind of, solving equations, solving puzzles and this type of thing. I have a process type of mind. But as I started to take my internships, as I started to work in the industry after I left Prairie View, I realized it's like, man, this is really not what I want to do when I turn, like at the time I graduated at the age of like 23. And I say, okay, when I turn 30 or when I turn 40, this isn't something I want to be in as a 40-year-old man. I don't want to be in this industry, right? I started to make steps. I started to make plans as to how can I transition into what I really love, and that was the business world. So I chose accounting as my next stage. So I went back and got my master's, and I ended up getting my master's in 2013, and in 2015 I was a full-time accountant for my own firm.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Now, jumping into that, great segue into your business and what you've created, right?
Mm-hmm.
You created Built to Pay You and the Wealth Triangle framework. Break that down for us in plain language. What does that mean to build a business that actually pays you? Talk to us about that.
So, every entrepreneur, I'll start with just kind of the theory, right? Every entrepreneur, when they tend to come out and they say, hey, I want to, do a business and I want to kind of go full time, right? Because my target is full time entrepreneurs. The very first struggle they have is typically from a financial standpoint. Sometimes it may be break even, sometimes it may be getting sales, sometimes it may be, hey, just paying yourself, or whatever the case is. Well, my target is, or the message that I have is, hey, listen, the business that you have should be built to pay you because you didn't work this hard to stay broke, right? A lot of people didn't come out to run a business to where they could barely pay themselves. They came out that says, look, I want to build something that, yes, I want to be able to wake up when I want, work when I want, wear what I want, do what I want, and do it, however I want. But the thing is a lot of them tend to miss the money side. They tend to have just one account where everything's kind of their life, their personal, their business, all of this they're operating out of. And before you know it, it's kind of like, hey, look, yeah, I made a lot of money this month from a sales standpoint, but at the end of the month, I don't have a whole lot here to do anything with. Like, what happened, right? That question of what happened is always there. So what I've done over the last 15 years is basically I've been teaching clients, left and right about, hey, there should be a strategy into wealth building when it comes to the entrepreneur space, right? So the wealth triangle, it talks about 3 stages. The first stage is making money. Everybody starts out like trying to make money, right? Then the next stage is multiply money. The next stage is manage money, right? Manage money, which means, hey, once you make the money, you have to take it through a process to ensure that whatever's left over, you can do the third stage, which is multiply money. Now, here's the reason, or here's the thing that I found out over the last 15 years is where I've seen people go wrong. Once they tend to make money, the first thing they want to do is, instead of manage money, they tend to cross that out. They tend to run over to multiply money. Like, for instance, I even did this for my very first business I started. I had some restaurants. The very first thing I did is when I came in and started to open up the restaurant, rather than me opening up one, I tried to go open up 5 at one time. And I ran into some problems because that very first restaurant, once we got it going, we started to have issues with the city to where, hey, the street that we were on started to have construction. And then all of a sudden our walk-in crowd started to dangle. And then all of a sudden we ended up having to have delivery, but it was hard to get around, in the lunch traffic, right? We couldn't really couldn't do delivery that well. So our in-store sales suffered. So we had to kind of pivot to do catering. And all of that stuff happened over the span of like the first and second year, to where eventually I just say, you know what, I'm done. I'm going bald. I'm kind of tired of all of this. So let me go ahead and sell this thing and just get out of it, right? But I had signed up to do 5 stores. So I'm like, okay, the major mistake that I did was I came in making money and I immediately went over to multiply money, but I did not sit down to think about the process of managing money to ensure that, okay, do we have the right numbers? Do we have the right metrics to open up 5 stores? Had I done that first, I would have realized, hey, we should have put everything we had into that first store instead of putting money over here trying to build 5 different locations, right? I could have used all that money to build that first store or even relocate that first store to get it profitable, and then you expand, right? But I did not do that. I tend to say, hey, look, we're going to make money in this first one, then we're going to open up 5, just because we wanted to multiply our money so fast. But that was a lesson that I learned in it. And I said, hey, well, that is something now that I teach. It says, hey, listen, but once you start to make money, once you start to make it, don't go quickly trying to multiply. Take a minute, take a beat, sit down, put it through that system of manage, start to understand what your break even start to understand what your conversion rates are, start to understand what your margins are, start to understand what all these numbers are. And the most important thing, you need to understand what your cash flow looks like. Because if you don't have cash, you don't have a business. So once we start to understand those numbers and you're able to consistently look at that stuff over a span of at least 6 months in a row, where you're able to put out consistent results, then and only then can you multiply money. So that's the framework that we teach. And I teach it in my book, Built to Pay You. And again, because you didn't work this hard to stay broke.
Fantastic. That's beautiful. You answered my follow-up expounding question. I was just wondering, at what point do they know? And you already answered that consistent workflow, that consistent cash flow. So that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. All right, you helped clients save millions in taxes and help multiple businesses grow into 7-8 figure enterprises, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the most common financial mistakes you see entrepreneurs making that are keeping them broke even when their business is busy? And you already mentioned one, right? They try to multiply too fast. Are there others?
Yeah. So the number one reason is cash flow. Nobody tracks cash flow. Everybody looks at revenue and they try to treat that as profit, right? So the thing that I teach is revenue is not profit. That is the very first thing I teach, right? Just because you made $100,000 this month, right? That does not mean that you are $1 million business just yet. You have to be able to consistently do that and take it through a process to ensure that your cash flow matches the 100,000. Right. So what we tend to do is, and again, I use myself as an example, but I'm going to tell you about another example of another person that I worked with that came to me after they had lost $2 million in 9 months.
Before you do that,
go right ahead.
Break down cash flow for the young people who have no idea what you talk about when you say cash flow. Break that down really, really quickly.
Okay, I'll do this very simple. So anybody that runs a business, the first thing that you'll probably learn in business school, and everybody that owns a business, they know, you ever heard of this thing called a profit and loss statement, right? So profit means revenue minus expenses. That they basically teach that it says, hey, whatever is left over is profit. However, this is where most small businesses get it wrong. They tend to take the number that says profit and thinks that, oh, well, this is what I have to spend. You absolutely do not have that. What you have to also look at is you have to look at what's actually in your bank account. The difference between that and what's in your bank account is what we call cash flow. When we talk about cash flow, if you started the money in your bank account at $1,000 and you ended the month in your bank account and you have, if you started at 1,000 and you ended with 5,000, that difference, that 4,000, that means you increased your cash flow by 4,000 if you're running a business, right? But most people, they may have 10,000 in profit, but only 5,000 in the bank account. Well, if that's the case, then that means that there's a gap somewhere. You made 10, but you only got 5 in the account. Most people never look at that gap and try to understand why this is happening. What they tend to do is they tend to celebrate it. They tend to celebrate on the 10. They tend to make decisions on the 10, and they tend to do all these things based on the 10. And by the end of the year, when the bank statement says 5, and now the IRS says that they're taxing you on that 10, that is where small business owners get in trouble, because they only got the 5, but they're being taxed on the 10. So what tends to happen is now you have a decision. Either I'm going to pay my taxes, or I'm going to eat tomorrow, or I'm going to pay rent tomorrow. I got to pay my staff. I got to do all these things. And before you know it, most small business owners, they start to go down this rabbit hole of, well, I'm behind on this. I'm behind on this. I can't pay the people today on this. Or I can't pay vendors. My kid got daycare. I gotta go over here and pay rent over this. My card notes due. All these different things. And the reason why that happened is because they were making decisions on the 10. They says, oh, well, I made 10,000 last month and I'm making 10,000 every month. So I should have $120,000. I have 120,000 in profit. So they're making $120,000 decisions, but their bank statement only shows 5,000. So that gap gets people in trouble all the time. And if you're not paying attention to it, you'll run yourself rigged. And before you know it, you're making decisions where now I'm having to come back and I need to build cash. So guess what? My sales price may be $1,000 for my offer or for whatever it is I do in business. But guess what you start to do? You start to drop that thing down to 500 because guess what? I need cash now. And on top of that, I'm used to working with a certain level of clients. But since I need cash now, I'm dropping it down to 500. I'm starting to let people in that don't necessarily qualify for what I do, or they don't necessarily fit for what I do. And now all of a sudden I start to get customer service issues. And then all of a sudden I'm now stressed. I'm now upset. I'm now having to make all these decisions. Before you know it, I'm frustrated in this business.
Yes,
but
sir.
Again, this is where I say the business should be built to pay you. So if you start to look at that stuff early, you get to catch those gaps. And you get to answer as to why these gaps are happening. And you get to do what we call put together a controlled spending plan. So you don't run into those issues anymore.
Fantastic. Now, I don't want you to forget about the client that lost $2 million. We're going to get to that. I have one more follow-up question. What are the most common reasons for that gap that you're speaking of? They made a $10,000 profit as an example you use, right? But they only have $5,000 in the bank. So what are the most common reasons for that?
Well, one of the most common reasons is lack of a spending plan. And I was literally getting ready to go to that. So lack of a spending plan. So here's the thing, right? When we talk about a system, every system should have three parts, right? You have an input, you have a process that manages that input, and then you have what we call a desired output, right? So take that and put it into your business. So when you put it into your business, we start to talk about money. Well, your sales are your input. Your books, your bookkeeping, all of that should be your process to manage that input. And then your desired output should be cash flow. But most people stop at the profit level. Well, the difference between the profit and the cash flow is what we call a managed or a controlled spending plan, which means, yes, you have profit, but we're going to control what we spend to ensure that we have cash flow every month. And we're going to make sure that based on what we have every month, we're going to control our spending based on what's actually in the bank.
Okay.
Right.
Fantastic.
So it may show 10, but that 10 could be that, hey, I did a service. I wrote an invoice to someone. That invoice is supposed to come in 2 weeks. But what if it takes 2 months? That's a gap now. Because my books is going to show that we made $10,000 in profit, but in the bank, we only got 5. So instead of us making decisions based off of what that profit and loss is, that, well, I made this money. It's supposed to be coming in next Friday. We can't make decisions on money that we don't have. We need to make decisions based on the money we actually do have.
Perfect breakdown. Thank you so much. Now, let's jump back to that client. You helped out a client that you said lost $2 million?
She lost $2 million in 9 months.
Let's talk about it.
So this was a client who came to me, and she had already lost it, but she kind of told me the story of what happened. She literally did the exact same thing I did, but she did it on a grander scale, right? This lady owned a daycare. She had owned a daycare for 15 years. Her sales were about $600,000 a year, right? Her profit was about 100 or so thousand, right? But the problem was when I started to look at her finances to try to help her turn things around, I noticed that her bank account never got over $5,000 at the end of every month. For years, right? I mean, we looked at years of bank statements and her ending balance was always around 5,000, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little bit more. And it caused me to think, I was like, what is going on, right? Well, The thing is, she never had bookkeeping. She was only, because again, daycares are what we call cash pay, right? These people paid every Friday or every Monday or however they did it. So she's taking that cash and she's paying her staff, she's paying the rent, she's paying, utilities, she's paying all these expenses. And whatever was left over, she was putting in her pocket and doing whatever it is that she wanted to do, because that's what she was always taught to do. Says, well, I'm going to just spend the rest. She never thought about an emergency fund. She never thought about making sure she had money set aside for taxes or any of that. It was always, hey, look, I'm just going to do what I saw my mama do. I'm going to do what I saw my auntie do. I'm going to do what I saw my grandma do. In those money practices that were carried over from generation to generation has gotten her in trouble. So what happened was during COVID, right? Watch this. During COVID, she received over $2 million in grants, PPP loans, EIDL loans, obviously because she's a business that was a critical business. She received all these different things from all these different governments. But the thing is rather than her actually putting together a system when that money came in or even getting just some proper advice, guess what she did, Galen? She did what her grandma did. She did what her auntie did. She did what the other people did. She did what she always done. She paid off stuff, built 4 other businesses because she thought that, oh, well, if I got one business here and I'm making 100,000 in profit, well, guess
Right.
what? If I build 4 others, I should now have 400,000 in profit. That was her thought process because she's treating revenue as profit, right? But she never decided, she never put together any set of books or anything like this. So in 9 months, what happened is she opened up these daycares in all these places that were unknown. Daycares take marketing. Also,
Right.
daycares are tied to the school system. So if you put a daycare out there in the middle of the summer, then guess what? It's going to take you at least 6 to 8 months to open because those folks that are in that area need to know that you exist. So she had to run radio ads. She had to put up signage. She had to spend all this money to get this thing open. So she spent it for each one about $500,000 on each one. Then on top of that, she paid off her house, right? In 9 months, she had to close down all those daycares. And then the house that she paid off, she had to go back and get a mortgage back on that house that she just paid off just to survive the current business that she had. Right.
Wow.
And then she comes to me after the fact and she's like, listen, I need to figure out what I just did so I don't ever do this again. And that's when we put her on a plan that says, look, we're going to put you on something that's going to basically change you around and help you manage your money. But you need to understand what just happened so you never have to do this again. So this is what we talked about, the gap. And I showed her the gap of what happened over those 9 months. And she was just blown away. She was like, nobody ever explained money to me like this before.
Wow.
And that's what I realized, that most people in our communities, right, when they open up businesses, they literally just open them up. Everybody's skilled. Everybody knows how to do the thing. But once the money comes in, nobody manages it. As a matter of fact, they'll look at people like me and says, well, I can do my own QuickBooks. I've heard this before. Well, I can do my own QuickBooks. I'm like,
Right.
you got to understand something. Financials are more than just QuickBooks. QuickBooks is just a tool that shows you what it is. But you need to
Right.
understand what that means. You need to understand what those numbers mean when you look at them. Right? Those numbers tell a story. If you don't understand what that story means, then guess what? You're going to keep making the wrong decisions. Right? All money ain't good money, right? You've played dominoes before. You can sit there. We all can sit there and look at a board. You can see one thing, I can see one thing, and two other people can see all 4 different stories on that board. But that's the thing with business owners, right? We're all looking at a domino board, and rather than getting somebody to give you advice, we're all making decisions because we think that we can do bad all by ourselves.
Right.
And that's what tends to happen is when we say that, we tend to start doing bad all by ourselves. And again, we go back to that mediocrity thing that says, well, I have a business. I can wake up and do what I want, when I want, how I want, and I should just be blessed and be thankful for that. And so they tend to just stay in mediocrity. But you could be so much better if you was just having an advisor.
Gotcha. Speaking of helping business people and entrepreneurs, you talk about helping them make and manage their money, right? And multiply money God's way. What does that actually look like in practical, everyday business decisions?
So I'm going to start off with this statement. Your business is called, or your business is designed to serve others. But it should be built to pay you. So it is your right. It is your privilege. It is your duty to get paid. The thing is, the business that I'm in, right? The stuff that I do, it's a calling that God has placed on my life. It's a gift that he's given me. I am a conduit from him to somebody that needs to be reached. And when I go out and I operate in this business, it is an act of service because people need to see God through me. Like I tell people all the time, Jesus, I may be the only Jesus that some people may ever see all week.
Right.
And the way I serve, since I serve the kingdom, people look at me like, hey, well, why are you so different? Why is it you so different? Why is it that you're operating like this and everybody else is operating like this? I don't have to do, like when I do my YouTube videos, right? Like when I actually teach on my YouTube videos, I give more stuff, more knowledge, drop more gems than any other CPA that's out there. Most CPAs want to just give you tax tips and send you on your way. I'm like, no. Let me show you this whole system that you need to have, because that tax tip will serve you one time. But these tips that I'm giving you, these gems that I'm giving you, that stuff will feed you for a lifetime if you understand how to implement it, right? I can, some of the tips I've given out helps people like get $5,000 in just an instant, right? But the thing is, if you're not understanding that you're here for the kingdom and the benefit of the kingdom and the glory, and to glorify God, then you'll miss that and you'll turn out and you'll just be just like everybody else.
Right. At what point did you find your calling within accounting? Like, when did you come to that uh, realization?
It was 2006 when I was in the middle of failing in that restaurant. Because in order to get in that restaurant, we had to do business plans, we had to do forecasts and all this type of stuff. And I literally did all that myself. And I had to partner with banks to make sure we had all the funding, right? So I had to learn just some simple basics about accounting. And I kept the books for all of the stores that we had. I had to learn that stuff myself. And then that's when I realized, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, this business didn't do right, but that's because I screwed up in the beginning. I never put a system together. So it was a little, too late for me to kind of fix it. But I said, you know what? If I ever get another chance to do another business, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that whatever business I get in, I'm going to teach and train others on how to run a business that pays them, how to run a business, how to establish a system that pays them. I'm going to be in the business that helps them. So that's why I went back to grad school to get my master's in accounting. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just start my own firm. And my firm since 2011, I started it part-time and then I became full-time in 2015. So ever since 2015, my mission has been helping people not just save taxes, not just put together accounting systems and things like this, and not just to grow business, but really to meet Jesus in this, as they're operating, right? To basically just operate their business different.
Wonderful. You already gave us one example of helping an entrepreneur that's cash strapped, and you just shared that your aspiration is just helping people, right? You specifically work with cash strapped entrepreneurs and ministry leaders. Why is that community so close to your heart, and what unique financial challenges do they face that others don't?
Well, think about the logic, right? No CPA wants to deal with somebody who can't pay. No CPA wants to deal with someone who doesn't have the money in their business, right? So
Right.
and honestly, and I'm giving you some industry secrets here, right? So I've been in, so many masterminds, man. I've been in so many different circles, and what they have told us is basically, hey, you need to go market to the 1%. But I'm sitting in those masterminds, and I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Now that I understand my calling, the Holy Spirit
Right.
told me, man, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. He was like, if everybody goes to the 1%, everybody's chasing the same client, then that puts the 1% in power. That puts the 1% in charge. What if you go and market to the 99? You have more people that you can talk to.
Say
Yes,
that.
they all have a need, but here's the thing, right? Let's go back to the Bible. When Jesus first met Peter, Peter had a need when he first met him. Before he told him to become my disciple, Peter needed fish. And he had a whole lot of reasons why he couldn't eat fish. Yeah, he probably had staff he had to pay. He probably had, issues at home. He probably had taxes he had to deal with. All these different things. So when Jesus came, he was preaching, right? And he came and said, look, I'm getting on this boat with you guys. I want you to go back out into that deep, and I want you to let your nets out. Peter was frustrated. But the thing is about business, the principle about business is people have to know you, they have to like you, and they have to trust you, right? When Peter went back out there and saw that fish, all of a sudden, no like and trust went out the window because he's like, look, this man came through for me. So whatever he's going to ask me for, my answer is automatically yes. And that's what I do for people. It's like, look, if I can help you save on taxes, if I can help you, soften your load with making your cash flow a little bit better, whatever I offer you after that, the answer is automatically going to be yes. And on top of that, you're going to be a disciple for me, and I don't have to spend a whole lot of money on marketing. I built my first business, Mac Reed and Associates. We built that to a 7-figure tax firm, and I didn't do anything on the internet for that. It's been word of mouth. I didn't have to spend hardly a dime on advertising. It was literally just, okay, I did right by one person. They went and told other people. I did right by somebody else. They went and told other people. I still get referrals to this day for that business. The new business I'm in now, the consulting business, is about a year old, and I've built that one to 6 figures only because I've just started talking about some of the stuff that I've done on the other side that people now say, oh, I want that. Oh, yes, I have a need for that. And I'm marketing to the 99 because, again, I think just going to the 1% is kind of dumb because it's like everybody's going after the same person. So I'm like, okay, well, why don't I just go to the 99? Because now I have a plethora of people that nobody wants. So if I can figure out a way to hit them and address their problems, they now become disciples of mine. They become evangelists of mine. And guess what? I don't have to spend a whole lot of marketing because I can say the message once and everybody else will go in the other rooms that I can't be in and talk about my brand and my business and all the things that I do. So that is why I decided to do it the way I did it.
And now you essentially answered my next question, but I want you to dot the I and cross the T and tie it into both for us, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You describe yourself as a kingdom-minded,
Mm-hmm.
and you believe entrepreneurs are key to building nations. Unpack that for us. What does that mean, and how does it connect to the work you do every day?
So, alrighty. So this is not scripture, but it's an opinion based on scripture. I believe that there are 7 mountains that are out here that everybody is called to, right, in industry. So, and I don't know all of them, but let's just say the entertainment and the arts, you have education, you have government, you have medical or health, you have finance, and then you have ministry, and then I can't think of the last one. Let's say education, right? So let's say these 7, right? Everybody's called in like different areas to those things, right? And I think our calling should be based on how we work and based on how we operate. People should be able to see God through us. And if they don't know God, it should be one of those things where as we're working, we should be so different than some of the other people that are just kind of following along doing what everybody else is doing that they should ask, hey, what is so different about you? There's something different about you. Why is it that you're doing this a certain way and it's working for you, and then everybody else is doing something different, and you're still outpacing them, you're still doing things better? And that is the opportunity when we get to explain who we serve and why we serve, and you get to explain, the pathway to Jesus Christ.
Wow. Now, that's I'm glad you ended on that note. You found a way to weave in your belief system and your ministry into your business. How has that been for you to mesh those two worlds? How has it been for you?
Oh, once I accepted it, easy, too easy. As a matter of fact, you can't separate the two. Some people say, "Oh, when I'm in the marketplace, I kind of turn God off." But the thing is I can't do what I do without the Holy Spirit, man. That's just how I move, man. I just can't, because, again, I'll put it like this: if my skill set is a 3 out of 10, and I'm about to walk into the room with a bunch of people that's 10 out of 10, if I have the Holy Spirit with me, then the power and the anointing that's on me will put me at the same level as them, because
Okay.
it's not of my own power, it's not of my own will, it's not of my own might, right? But here's the thing: when you take the Holy Spirit out of it, then everybody gonna see that you're just a 3 out of 10, because I can only do 3 out of 10 things. I can only think 3 out of 10 things. I can only produce 3 out of 10 things. But that is why the Holy Spirit is so important, because you're able to do something out of your own might that I would have never thought I could do this. Like the fact that we're talking,
Right.
I've never would have been able to write my own book if it wasn't for the Holy Spirit. I wouldn't be able to talk on this thing. A year ago, I was so afraid to even talk on this thing and put out content and sit on these podcasts. But it wasn't until I finally accepted that, hey, I'm conduit. All I am is conduit. I'm supposed to say, hey, listen, God, wherever you send me, whatever I'm supposed to do, my answer is yes. And then he tells me how to do it, right? Think about Noah in the Bible, right? He had never been on a boat. He had never seen rain. But then God tells him all of a sudden, hey, I need you to build a boat. Now, it took him 100 years to do it, but he got it done through the might of God. He got it done through the might of God, and he ended up saving a whole generation, his whole bloodline, because he said yes to God. So the thing that I will leave with you on this question is if you say yes to God, you couldn't imagine the places that you could go where he would send you, because then it wouldn't be just about making money anymore. It would be about solving other people's problems and somebody's needs. And that's the thing that I had to understand, is that somebody was actually praying to God for a solution that I have. And that's when I realized, oh, Holy Spirit, this is why you have to be in me, because you need to be sending me to the places where these people are praying. These people may be needing me, And I'm like, hey, I've been holding on to this solution all this time, but instead of me just saying, hey, I'm gonna do it and serve my own goals, I'm gonna do it and flip it, and I want to solve their problems, and I trust that you take care of me. That's all that the scripture, Matthew 6:33, that is all it's about. Is when it says, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. I don't have to worry about a bottom line. I don't have to worry about sales. I don't have to worry about, oh, do I have money in my account? Because I've decided to make the Holy Spirit and God and his mission my first priority. And the way I do that is I teach it through Built to Pay You, because there's a lot of people out here struggling and they've been praying to God about money. So my job is to remove money from their prayer list so they can pray about something else.
Mic drop nugget. I love that. I love that. I need you to worry about other stuff. Let's just get the money part out of the way. You can pray about that.
Because the thing is, think about it, right? If money was not an option, I'm gonna ask you the question. If money wasn't an option, what would you do?
Man, I would do this full time. I would just do this and continue to put all my resources and energy in this full time, full force.
And think about the reach you could have. Think about the lives you can impact. Think about all of the things that you could do for other people.
Right.
That is why I'm doing what I do. Because there's somebody waiting on you. There's somebody waiting on me. But coins are in the way right now. Money's in the way right now. So if I can show somebody, okay, look, let me help you out with that. Let's get that off the prayer list. Let's get your budget together. Let's get you situated to where, hey, you never have to worry about taxes again. You never have to worry about cash flow again. Here's a system, right? Once you have that system in place, then guess what? Now you ain't got no excuses. God can hold you accountable because you ain't doing what he told you to do. But if you decide to do it, then all of a sudden it's like, hey, the places and the things that you want to do, hey, it's now open. It's open space and opportunity now because you said yes to God, and now you no longer have to pray about money. Money is no longer an option.
Got it. Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. I love it. Beyond the boardroom and the balance sheet, you've also poured into young people through coaching youth basketball. What did coaching teach you about leadership, mentorship, and developing the next generation?
So I am going to give, before I even answer that question, I am going to, and I've never done this before. Well, actually I did once. I am going to give a shout out to two gentlemen that were in Cleveland that literally molded me, and it made me want to be more so like them from a coaching standpoint. The first guy is named Carl Smith. We call him Coach String. That man used to open up the gym so many times for us as kids, man, to keep us out of trouble. We used to be in Eastwood. Sometimes Eastwood, sometimes Eastside, but we used to be at Eastwood, I know for sure. Over there just hooping on the weekends, man. And like he trained us, he got us right. And I remember like he exposed us to the game of basketball, taught us the game of basketball. And then the other coach is Mr. Ira Wilson. I don't even know if you remember, if you ever came to Underwood, little Terrence and Terrence daddy coach, Mr. Ira Wilson. He used to take us, it was a group of us, right? He used to take us to like different little cities. Like before we got to high school, we'd go play in like Greenwood. We'd go play in Greenville. We'd go play in all these different little towns against like little, at the time, we didn't know what AAU was, right? We didn't know what any of that stuff was, but he would take us on these little things over the weekends to go play against these kids and say, look, I want to show y'all that there's another way of playing the game, that you can go do this and still meet people and still understand the game of basketball and get better at it, right? So as I gotten older, I realized, man, I got to give back to these people what happened to me. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to become a coach, because I was like, man, they really impacted my life. And I literally wanted to make it a full-time thing that says, hey, look, if I can't play the game, I want to at least coach. So when I got to Houston and I had my son, and I realized that he was, getting into, athletics, there was a void in the little area that we were in. And he had a couple of friends that all wanted to play, but we couldn't really find any quality like leagues or coaching or anything like that. So I said, you know what? Rather than me complain about it, because a lot of parents would complain about coaches and all this type of stuff. They complain about the refs and the coaches and stuff. I said, you know what? I'm going to be different. I'm going to just stand up. I'm going to volunteer, and I'm going to fill this gap. I literally was only supposed to coach for one season, Galen. I was only supposed to coach for one season. But man, that thing turned into like a 10-year, 10-year, 12-year event, man, where I had my own program, man. I was taking these kids all across the country and all this type of stuff. Now all my kids, like all these kids are in college, they doing well. Matter of fact, I think one of them is even opened up his first business, like first full-time business that I got to go support him in a few weeks. But I am so, I mean, the things that I was been able to do, like a lot of these kids were impacted because I said yes and said, you know what, I'm going to just do what happened for me. I'm going to give them the same space, the same environment, the same, opportunities that happened to me, man. And from that, a lot of kids switch from playing other sports to say, hey, I want to go play basketball. And now they're making, some of them going to make a career out of it. So, I mean, that was my reasoning for doing it, man. It was really just to give back. I did not profit from coaching. I literally say, hey, look, this is the way I'm just going to give back and pour into these young men.
That's so awesome. You talk about impact, and you already mentioned it. Now that's bearing fruit, right? You sow seeds into these kids, and now they're some of them are going to start coaching, right? Some of them are about to start a business or have started a business already, and then others are being successful in whatever other avenues they're doing. So that's a beautiful thing, man. That's
Exactly.
wonderful.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. Cool. What parallels do you see between coaching a young athlete and coaching an entrepreneur? Because it sounds like you've been developing people your whole life. So
there's a very distinct parallel. Let me tell you. The parallel is this. I'm going to start off with this statement first. Every king needs a king. Like, we're all kings on this earth, right? God has given us dominion. I mean, you go back to the book of Genesis, it talks about how we all have dominion. God gave us dominion. He gave us abilities. He gave us all this stuff, right? So in my house or in my domain here, right, this is my kingdom, right? He's put me here as a head. However, even when I go into the marketplace or even when I decide to say, hey, look, I want to operate in my calling, I still need to learn from somebody. I still need to submit to somebody. That is how God has made us as humans, right? And a lot of people will say, well, I don't need church. I don't need a pastor. I don't need, all these things. I can do this myself. Here's the thing about doing things yourself, Galen. When you're isolated, you're left to your own thoughts, you're left to your own abilities, and you're left to your own, creative ideas. But here's the thing. Eventually, if all you have is yourself and you have nothing to reference and you have nobody to bounce and hold you accountable, then, and I like as they say, an idle mind is a devil's playground. You'll tend to start to make decisions that will actually hurt you than help you, because you won't know what's right or what's wrong because you're thinking about it yourself, right? So when it comes to coaching in business and when it comes to coaching the kids, the thing I tell kids all the time is, hey, if you're coachable now, you'll be coachable when you're an adult, right? And for my adults, I tell them all the time, I says, listen, if you want to go from step 1 to step 2, all you need to do is just get with someone who's at step 2 to learn the steps of how they got from step 1 to step 2. And then once you get to step 2, give back to someone who's at step 1 to show them how to get to step 2. And then you move on to step 3 and so on and so forth, right? So for me, yes, I call myself Coach Mac, the cash flow coach and all of this. But guess what, Galen? You may not have known this. I've been in business for 15 years and I've spent, in addition to my master's degree, right? In my education that I had in college, I've spent another well over $100,000 in education and coaching. Ooh. Because guess what? I looked at it just like the athletes look at it, right? LeBron James, right? For an example. Right now, there's people that will say that he's the greatest player of all time. Now, obviously, I disagree with that, right? Obviously, I disagree with that. He's number 2 in my book. But still, he spends $1 million a year on himself. Because you want to know why? He wants to get better. He's investing in himself. So when it comes to people that are adults that says, hey, look, I want to do better, then guess what you got to do? You got to invest in yourself. Right? You can't just be out here on your own and say, well, I'm going to just do this on my own. I can figure this out on my own. Yes, you can. But guess what you're doing? While you're trying to figure this out, while you're trying to figure something out on your own that you're not called to do, you're over here missing sales. You're missing opportunities. You're doing all this that you are called to do. That's a whole lot easier. which is why you don't see me. Like my wife used to get upset at me at one point. Like we hired a chef, and she was like, "Well, we can just cook." I'm like, "But if my rate is $1,000 an hour, and I'm building 4 different businesses, and we got a, we have a 7-figure business over here, another 6-figure business over here, and we're trying to build this 3rd business. I think it will be more advantageous for us to work on building a business versus over here trying to cook food. I could just pay somebody to come in and cook." Now, some people may look at that and says, "Well, man, hey, that's y'all bougie." No,
Yeah.
it ain't got nothing to do about being bougie. It's about being better.
Yeah, and you're
It's about
allocating
bettering
your
myself.
time. You're allocating your time where it needs to be instead of just
I'm
cooking.
spending more time in my gift. I'm not a good cook. So why would I sit over here and burn something up when I can just pay somebody that says, "Hey, look, they're gifted in cooking. Come
Right,
cook." Right? I don't wash my own cars anymore. I don't even run them through the car wash anymore. Matter of fact, this past Friday or Saturday, I can't remember what day he came, but I have a detail guy that comes and he washes all the cars at the house, and I paid him because I was like, "Look, this dude is gifted in his
right,
calling, right?
right,
He's gifted at that." And I'm like, "Look, while he's doing that, I'm over here booking $40,000 deals." Right? And I'm like, "Hey, okay, I can give him his money and I still profit. And I can move
right.
on and work on scaling my business."
So
So that is
you're
that
investing your time in where it needs to be, so you can continue to build on your
exactly.
businesses.
And guess what, Galen? I learned that from another coach who was doing that. At first I didn't understand it, but then once they broke the numbers down to me, it says, "Look, if your rate is $1,000 an hour, right? Why would I go spend an hour learning how to cook that I can't go produce any income on? Why not pay somebody their fee to do that while you go and figure out how to increase your rate from 1,000 to 2,000?"
Wow.
Once I got that down in my spirit, and once I got that down and realized that, oh, this is special, I put everything into it after that. Everything I had into it.
That's dope.
So there's a lot of
That's
stuff that I just don't do that I used to do. Now I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna take all that time I've saved, and now I have time to be creative. Now I have time to think. Now I have time to mentor others. Now I have time to serve in my gift. And as a result of that, God is blessing me in the background. I don't have
that's
to worry
beautiful.
about break evens and margins and sales and all these different things. I'm
That's
seeing it.
beautiful.
I'm seeing it happen. Definitely for 2026. So many doors are being opened in 2026 that wasn't available in 2025 because I had to change my perspective.
That's beautiful. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's levels to this. He had to get to that point where he get a chef. Before
Oh,
then,
absolutely.
he's
Absolutely. No, I'm not saying if you starting a business now to just stop everything. No, 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 no. Do it as your level gets there, right? So if you are at if you're trying to make your first $100,000 in business, then hey, there's an investment you need to make to figure out, okay, how do I make my first 100,000? And go do everything you got to do to make that. Once you
right.
make that, then you invest. Again, you invest back into yourself that says, okay, how can I go from 100,000 to 200,000, 200,000 to 500,000, 500,000 to make my first million? And then you
Man,
just go from there.
you have such a wonderful message, my brother. Thank you for sharing so much that you've shared. If a teenager is listening right now, has a business idea but doesn't know where to start financially, what is the first thing you would tell them to do?
The first thing that I would tell them to do is to basically start with a foundation. So, and this is something that I should have done. Learn about money. First thing, learn about money. Before you go out and says, "Hey, do I want to be an entrepreneur?" Excuse me, do I want to go work for a company or anything like this? Learn about money. Learn about how money moves, how to invest, how to make sure that, okay, how to budget, all these different things. And then start with a goal, put a plan together. And then you attack that plan. So that plan may be, hey, I want to be a millionaire. If let's say I'm 15, right? And I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 35. That's 20 years. First thing we need to do is understand how money. Let's understand the topics of money and how that works, right? Talk to some people. Go have conversations with people that work around money. So financial advisors, anybody that works at like Edward Jones or Primerica or any of these Fidelity or any of these different places, right? They should be able to have, conversations with you that talks about money, and they should be able to help you put together a plan. Then your plan, you just got to work the plan. Once you understand how money works, then you go and say, look, okay, we're going to go ahead and put this plan together. And then you just start to work that plan. And then as you go, start to track and start to evaluate, am I on track from 15 until the age of 30 or 35 or whatever you're trying to do over those next 20 years? Am I on track, right? And then again, every king needs a king. Submit under someone who understands and let them hold you accountable to your plan.
Dropping jewels. I hope people are taking notes. You dropping some major nuggets, man.
So that is where I would start. That is definitely where I would start.
That's wonderful. You and I both grew up in a small town, Mississippi, found our way to bigger stages. What do you want young people from places like Cleveland, Mississippi to know about what is possible for their lives?
Anything is possible as long as you believe. That, I will tell you this, that was the issue that I saw with people around me when I was growing up. The belief system wasn't there. And even now as adults, right? I see it on social media. Everybody talks about like, hey, there's certain environments that they're in or courses they're in, and someone may say, hey, I'm taking a course to learn how to do this. The first thing that they talk about is mindset. Well, the reason why a lot of these people talk about mindset so much, and the reason why so many people are so heavily invested into like mindset coaching and all of this is because if I don't believe that I could do something, then the effort that I would put into it is not going to be as great as if I did believe. Right? So like, for instance, and you may have seen this growing up, right? If you seen somebody sitting in a class, the teacher is teaching, they didn't want to be there. That is the person that had bad grades. It wasn't that they didn't understand the stuff. They probably perfectly could understand the stuff, but they never put the attempt to try to understand because guess what? They didn't want to be there in the first place. Their mind was somewhere else. Their mind was distracted because they wanted to do something else in that moment, right? So the first thing I would tell somebody, a young adult that's in Cleveland that says, hey, look, I want to be successful is okay. Well, you need to believe, really believe that you want to be successful. Believe that you can be successful. And literally put that plan together and just start at it. Regardless of how it turns out, like maybe you may hit some bumps here and there. Maybe you have some setbacks here and there because we all have had them, right? I've gone through. At the end of the day, you have to believe that destination that you want, you can still get there.
That's beautiful.
And then have somebody hold you accountable to it. And that'd be the other thing. Just have somebody hold you accountable to your belief system. And as long as you have that, you should be good.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your message, dropping some insight and knowledge and wisdom for the audience. I appreciate you. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you to either collaborate with you or get your book? Let's talk about your book first and then talk about your businesses and how people can reach out to you.
Yeah, so my book is called Built to Pay You Because You Ain't Worth This Hard to Stay Broke, right? It's a collection of stories that I've had over the last 15 to 20 years about just money management. And I basically wrapped it all up into a 5-step framework. This 5-step framework, I have helped build businesses to, from startup to, 7 figures, 8 figures. And then also I've helped, some people have cash, they had cash flow problems go from, again, where they, one guy just a year ago, he had like $20,000. He could barely get past 20,000. Now, fast forward a year, this guy has an average running balance of $1 million in his bank because he used some of the things that I taught in this book, right? So you can go to my website, www.mac-read.com, and literally just right in the top, the top level there, you can just click on buy the book. And you can buy the book. It's $27. And I think there's a little shipping that's added to it. We'll ship it right to you. You can also find me on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at, my handle is at CFO Coach Mac. That is where I drop probably once or twice a week. I drop free knowledge all of the time where I'm teaching. Because I've made it my business this year. Again, like I told you, my mission is to remove money from someone's prayer list. And a lot of people can't afford some of the things that we have. So I'm putting a lot of free content out because, again, while you're sitting there praying, I'm like, hey, you can pop on YouTube and learn something that you can literally implement today for free. Right. And then as it helps you, then obviously come see me and I can coach you to get to the next level. So
Now, we don't want to miss any clients for the entrepreneurs and the businesses that can meet your requirements and what your ask is. Talk a little bit about your businesses and how they can reach out to you. Would they reach out to you through the same website or?
yeah, so you can go to www.mac-read.com or same thing, the social media handles at CFO Coach Mac. Just send me a DM. We do have some subscription plans. We do have some virtual CFO packages that I work with business owners that are growing, that are serious about growing, and they're serious about correcting some of the things in their business. I only work with business owners that are serious, right? So I am very demanding. I'm very blunt. I'm very upfront. So if I will tell you this, if you can't take tough talk, I might not be the guy for you. Because the thing is I take what I do very, very serious. So we're gonna be very, very very upfront, very frank, and we'll give you a plan to get to your point. And again, I'm a coach. So you don't want your coach to be soft. You don't want your coach to be, oh, it's okay, and all these type of things. You want your coach to hold you accountable. Because at the end of the day, I'm just as vested as you are because it's my mission to see you succeed. That is the type of coach that you want, right? So at CFO Coach Mac is like one of the ways to reach me, or www.mac-read.com.
So I'm gonna rephrase that for the folks that's listening. If you're tender, he's not the one for you.
No, not at all. Not at
Don't
all.
be-
Not at all. I've made some people. In my time, man. I've been, like I said, I've been doing this since the year 2011. I've made a few folks upset, but I realized that a lot of the folks that were upset really wasn't serious about trying to do this thing. They just wanted.
Right.
They just love mediocrity.
Right.
They love being mediocre, and I'm not that way. I'm a competitor. I'm
Yes,
trying
sir.
to come for everything that I feel like God has for me, and I'm trying to get it all before I check out of here. Right. And on top of that, I want to make sure it's my mission that everybody that feels that same way, I want to have an impact for those folks as well. Again, my goal is to move money out of your prayer list, right? So if you love to just pray about money and all that, then okay, cool. That's fine and dandy. But I'm here for the ones that's tired of making all this money, but then their bank statement shows something different. Right. I'm tired of all these people that have to go and start to constantly do all the transfers back and forth, but yet they're celebrating because they've hit sales goals. I'm for the person that says, look, they paid the IRS, they paid their staff, they paid all these different people, but then at the end of the month, they're almost in tears because they're like, why can't I keep my bank account over 5,000, over 10,000? I'm for the people that want to have like an emergency fund for their business because they're tired of dipping into their personal savings. If that is you, then I'm your guy. I can definitely help you. In 90 days, I can help you get out of that. I have a 5-step system that's super easy that I can get you up out of that and get you to a point where you can grow and scale your business.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now we cannot close without talking a little bit about your family, man. So just what you're willing to share, just talk a little bit about your family, and we'll close out.
So yeah, so my wife, I've been married for 21 years now, and it's crazy, man. I've known my wife since we were 11 years old. She's from Greenville.
Oh, dope.
Interesting way how we met. We met through a mutual friend, but we've known each other, man, off and on. We didn't date or anything. We didn't date until we got older. But yeah, so I've known her, since then. We have 2 kids. My son, he's 20. My daughter's 15. She'll be 16 in a few months. My son, he's a college athlete. He's a basketball player at a school in Arkansas. My daughter, she's a ball player right now. She's currently injured. She tore her ACL a freshman year. She tore her ACL in practice, but she's recovering right now. She had the surgery. She's recovering. But they both in their own rights, man, are really good kids, man. They have a lot to offer the world, and I believe my son, he's finding his way, and I'm super proud of him because the hard work and the dedication that he shows, man. He reminds me of myself when I was coming up, man. That I was a super serious guy because I had goals. right? I had goals, and I just felt like, man, I just didn't want to be in an environment that limit me. So he's kind of the same way. Like he has his own schedule. He does his, has his own thing that he kind of moves. He moves his own drum. And my daughter's kind of the same way. She has her thing that she likes to do, and she's super serious. She wants to be a doctor and things like that. So she's kind of working on some things to kind of do that. So that's the family, man. I love them. They like I said, we're very close knit, very good relationships. I don't know. What else you want to know? What else you want to know?
If you want to send your chef my way pro bono, hey man, hey, it's just a few hours away. Just you can just send them. And if you want to just keep that tab, hey man, hey, I'm not gonna
Well,
turn it down.
so I'll tell you this. So my wife has limited me on that now. She decided that she wants to get back into it because she's seen how much money we were spending on it. And she was like, "Well,
Yeah,
no, look,
yeah.
I'm gonna find a way to get that done." So she's back. She's back helping out with that more often now. But I told her, I said, "Listen, I said that we're gonna make this temporary because once we get this next business going, hey, we have another company that is not as busy as it should be, and it's in real estate." So I told her, I said, "Look, we're gonna come 2027, we're about to kick that thing off." And I told her the moment we do that, we got to get that chef back in here. So yeah, so right now she's kind of been helping out with that with the food and things like this because the kids are home and all that. But I told her, I says, "Hey, come 2027, we coming out that kitchen. We got to get back to this real estate. So we about to get on it."
Now, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. Mac might be one of the first returning guests, and we're going to talk about real estate. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing you to be. We're going to speak that to existence. We're going to speak success in real estate into existence, man. We're going to claim that for you, right?
Well, look, I appreciate it, man. I definitely appreciate it.
Cool. That's all for today's episode of HBCU4U. Mac, thank you, my brother. All the way from Houston, Texas, by way of Cleveland, Mississippi, to changing lives, right? To our listeners, share this, subscribe, and come back next time. We're just getting started. Again, I'm Galen Turner, and we out. Peace.
Thank you for having me.